such a pro. He got me a hat. You have a hat?
Yes.
Oh my God. You got to be fucking kidding me. How much money did your parents give you?
That's for you, Mr. Freid.
Dude, I can't tell you how thankful I am. This is so cool.
I just figured you've been doing, podcasts, dating podcasts. I've been benefiting from your advice via the show. I'm like, I got to give back to me.
Dude, thank you so much. I hope you aren't a murderer.
Plot twist.
Right. I'm ready. What are we taping? Okay.
We're going.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't say anything awful, did I?
No.
This is amazing, dude.
Cool. I'm stoked you like it.
So you knew me from You Up.
Yeah.
And you started this podcast. This is episode 14, so
you're really taking a chance on me here at the early days of Nick's Vancast.
Yeah. So what gets you into this? I don't mean to interview you on your own show, and I'm sure the listeners already know this story, so I don't want to.
All 12 listeners know this.
Yes, but I'm bringing people over too. Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially, I had this van that I was really looking forward to traveling and climbing and doing the adventure life.
How
or whatever.
old are you?
28.
28. Were you working in something else?
Yeah. Well, no, I currently work for a hospital doing photo stuff. And so when I started that job, I'm like, I got to figure out a way to still use the van to do stuff. And I'm like, I'm going to do
What video and photo stuff could you do for a hospital?
It's like marketing. So it's a public hospital. It's like, hey guys, come to this public hospital. We're not the worst.
Okay.
Highlighting the good research there and stuff like that.
Got it. And you can do that remote?
No, I work in an office.
So this is a weekend van?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that lifestyle kind of speaks to me a little bit more than the I live in my fucking van lifestyle.
Yes, I don't shower. I don't have a shower, so I don't shower in this, whatever.
Yeah.
I have a studio that I live in.
So, okay, in Santa Cruz.
In Cupertino.
Where's that? I don't even know.
Cupertino,
that's where the
Apple.
phones are from.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I used to work at the Apple store, actually.
Holy
Cupertino is like an hour south of San Francisco. Less. Gonna see you in San Francisco, too.
Thank you. So, okay. You see that I'm coming. You're like, let's get in the van. And that's kind of the lifestyle. Let's jump in the van and go somewhere cool this weekend.
Kind of, yeah. And then I was like, this is cool, but I wanted to do something different. And I was like, I had this idea for a podcast. I have solar hooked up. And I was like, all this stuff it just fit together. I got the mics, I got the cameras. And then it's like, oh, it's a thing now. And I wanted to interview people who I thought were inspiring, doing cool stuff.
Cool.
It didn't matter what profession, it was, athletes or, comedians. You're my second comedian, actually.
Who's the first?
His name's Jeff Applebaum. He is also living in the Bay Area, but he's from New York.
Okay.
Because that's where you live now, right?
Yeah, I live in New York.
When he came on, he said, what's this called? Nick's Creepy Van Pod? I was like, oh, thanks. No, he's a good guy, though. No,
dude, this is a beautiful thing. Like, I think it's cool. Like, this is like, now when you put it that way, I think everything has to be explained.
Yes.
Like, this is what we do as people. We go, I call it FTG mode, where if, like, someone approaches you with their thing or says hello or you're introduced to someone, I think most people's first move is that guy. And that could be for anything. That's the hypothetical guy. Like, it could be, I'm living in, I have my van where I do my podcast on my van. That
yeah.
And people, and then you go, and then you walk it back. You go, okay, I'm not a dickhead. And then you go, well, how does this all work? And now you're like, yeah, I got my apartment in Cupertino. Cupertino. I got the van in the parking lot. I go somewhere on the weekend. I want to go see, I want to go to LA, the Pacific Coast Highway. You must be seeing parts of the world that you may not have seen.
Yeah, and the cool thing is you park anywhere and you open the door and, it's a Walmart parking lot usually, or it's something beautiful, So
you can go to, like, campgrounds and stuff. Like, that's got to be a beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Or you just kind of stealth camp in someone's neighborhood.
That's where it gets into the creepy land. Now, what about the TikTok stuff? Like, I'm aware of van life because of TikTok. Like, that was the first TikTok that I would stop on. Like, for whatever reason, my TikTok, it'll be, like, Disney people. I don't know why. I think and it's also Marvel stuff because I love the Marvel movies.
Okay.
So maybe that's where I get the Disney stuff from. And then in the beginning, it was van people because they would capture views that were like, Like what I did understand, like open the door, mountain cliff, coffee, steam coming off the coffee, they're cooking outside. It does seem nice, but it also seems like I don't have the ability to do that.
Again, like anything on social media, that all is so curated because if they turn that camera on, you are going to see the pee jar, right? You're going to see all the stuff you can't.
The pee jar, the jar with which you pee. I thought that was like jargon. You and Alec were like, yeah, I got the pee jar, pee jug, and I was like, oh, that must be like, where they do their computer stuff. No, that's where they literally pee into a jar. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it's like very romanticized.
Yes,
it's not
like anything,
awesome.
Right? Look at someone's relationship on Instagram. That.
Yes.
So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that it's not something that I'm trying to do to like get famous or whatever. It's really something where I'm like, I wouldn't have had just this random opportunity to be like, hey, Jared, you want to sit down for an hour and just tell me about yourself? Dude. It's like I get this cool opportunity to talk to people I really think are awesome and fascinating.
Yeah, man. When people ask me about starting a podcast, I'm always like, you got to have a show. And then I'm like, you also have to envision yourself doing it a year from now. Like, everyone's like, I'm going to do it. It was the same when the blogs got, people started blogging and people were like, well, I should start a blog about my dating life. And it's like, do you want to talk about that for a year? And I, someone would be like, well, Jared, you do a podcast about dating. I'm like, yeah, the questions come to me. It's not like I'm not sitting there being like, let me tell you my story from the week, so something like this where you're like, I like doing this. Those are the podcasts that usually, fare well and have people want to be a part of it.
Yeah, as opposed to people saying, I think that I enjoy comedy, so I'm going to try to do a comedy podcast. And they start it, and you see that they have two, and the last one was published a year ago.
Yeah,
it's like it fall off.
You got to be consistent. Passionate. I hate that, especially because people get into these things. Like you want to, for me when I first started doing comedy, I was very. You have to like protect, how it's perceived. I don't know. Is that how I want to put it? You have to protect that it is a job and something you do. So like I remember when I started, you're making no money. People don't know who you are. I'm like, I'm going to write something that gets released every Thursday. Then the podcast starts. I'm like, it's going to come out every Tuesday. And there's no boss like, where's the podcast, Jared? There's no, but if I didn't keep I had to be my own boss and go, if you don't do it, what are you doing anyways? What are you doing if you're not producing every week? So, and then on top of that, doing stand-up at night. So like stand-up was always like kind of like this thing that I'm molding, this thing that I'm growing. It's like a plant that I'm watering every day. And, and hoping it becomes a tree. And then while I was doing it, keeping busy writing and putting out things to the internet and the wild west of the internet and seeing who can connect with it so that one day when they go, I got to see him when he comes to my town. I got to see what this guy does. And then, nowadays, stand up, a lot of the comics are putting out minute clips. Like that's a big thing. To me, you see people that just aren't ready to put those out yet. I mean, if I was 2 years in a comedy, I'd be putting out the minute clips too. But to me, that's throwing a penny into a well and making a wish. Because because then let's say one video pops off. And now you get 10,000 people following you. That was a minute of your material. Do you have an hour on top of that to do when you go to their town?
Yeah.
And what are they gonna come the next time you come? Is that a career? You have to think, and that's like the problem with like TikTok and social media is like, you see on TikTok, people do the same thing every day. Like they'll get one video that pops off and it'll be, and I'm like repeating myself. I've said this a bunch, but it's like your video about you complaining about your date pops off. And then what are you going to do tomorrow?
What's the next?
I'm going to do another bad dating story. And then I'm going to do another bad dating story. And then let me take your submissions with your bad dating stories. Now you're the bad dating story person.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not a career. That's a one-off, to me. But.
It's chasing that feeling of, I got 10,000 likes. I'm going to try to get 10,000 likes again.
And again, that is currency in a certain aspect. But I don't think the currency matters unless you have the base to take those 10,000 likes and, hey, here's my other thing, and here's the podcast, and here's the stand-up show, and they're all good. Are they good? Are they edible?
Yeah. You don't have a boss saying you got to do this, you got to do this, and so a big reason why I wanted to do this, to talk to people who are doing those things when nobody's telling them to do it. They're turning their passion into career. I think you're a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
A bunch of, obviously, tons of people know who you are. Can you just give a quick intro?
I'm sorry, I never shut the fuck up. I totally railroad. I'm just amazed by everything you have here. I'm Jared Freid. I'm a comedian. I live in New York. I have podcasts. I yell at charcuterie, and I do stand-up, and I yell at The Bachelor as well. I do a lot of yelling. I never shut the fuck up. As you can see, I totally took over Nick's Vancast, and let me apologize for that. So I
apologize. This is your show.
No,
this is your home today.
I can't believe how professional you are. This is such a great. I am truly impressed.
Thank you. Well, welcome to the Professional Vancast. Now we're going to talk very serious.
Yeah, no, right.
Welcome to California, by the way.
I love California.
Yeah, you're from Boston, right? Living in New York?
I'm from outside of Boston, a suburb called Needham. And my parents have now moved down to Florida, to Boca. So, some people think I'm from Boca now because I take a lot of videos from there. They're like the Northeast Jews that moved to Florida. It's like going into a Seinfeld episode there. And I've been living in New York since 2007. I was selling life insurance and annuities and trying to figure out my life as most 22 to 20, to the rest of your life people. From 22 to death is just trying to figure out. And the best part of my day was making friends laugh. And as hokey and stupid as that sounds, that's what I enjoyed doing. I enjoyed talking on the phone with my friends and bantering and ball busting. I like talking and being fun. And I was like, how do I do that? How do I inject that drug into my veins every day? And that's kind of turned into me just, and that's why people are always like, a lot of people think, they're like, you put out so much stuff. I do put out a lot of stuff. And because it is my life. I'm putting this is what I like doing every day. I don't have to me, it's not stuff, it's not content, I hear these, now people are very aware. I just wanted to do stand-up. I and I wanted to go on the road, and I wanted to go to Sacramento, and I wanted to do Nick's Vancast. The
end goal.
This is the goal. No, this was the goal. And I referenced this piece of advice that wasn't even given to me, but it was given to someone else from a comic named Kyle Kinane, who's very famous and a great comic. And I've never even met this guy, but I've repeated his advice so many times. And it's, stand-up is the prize. You get to do stand-up if you do all the other So it's like a lot of jobs are that. If you like your job, you probably like one or two aspects of it, or one thing you get to do, sales presentations, closing the deal. So if you enjoy your career, and this is the thing, again, the Instagram thing you talked about, you see the romanticized version, and you don't see all the behind it. So I like doing podcasts, I like doing stand-up, but I love doing stand-up. I love a good show, a good hour of material where the whole room is rocking and everyone's on the same page. That is the prize. Now, to get that prize, you gotta wake up and tape the ads for your podcast, and you gotta answer the DM from someone that goes, "Hey, what time's your show tonight? What time should we show up?" And you gotta, deal with people on Instagram going, "Not even fucking funny," and all that garbage. Is to get this one pearly thing that you want. And I think that's true for every career that people enjoy. When someone says, "I love my job," they like one thing they get from it. And sometimes that's money. Sometimes they just like seeing the paycheck, and that's okay too. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Does that sustain a person if they are doing something that they semi-like and the pay is good? How long can that really last?
Well, if money gets you off, it can last forever.
That's true.
That's the thing. There's no good and bad in the world. There's bad, but I'm saying when you like something, when I say it on the UF podcast with dating, I've been working on a bit about this, where it's you see all these to me they're snake oil salesmen. They're on the internet telling telling you the rules to this. Here's the rules. Here's the rules. Here's the rules to dating. There's no rules. There's be a good person, try your best, and trust your feelings. That's the rules. Be a good person, try your best, and trust your feelings. And sometimes we fail at being, we'd like to be better people. We'd like to act better the next time. Like, you hear about people ghosting. I don't think a ghoster is an evil person. I think that's a person who's dealing with their own and probably doesn't want to ghost someone. I don't think they entered a relationship and listen, that's not to say that maniacs aren't out there.
Yeah, definitely.
There's people that are like, well, I'm going to get in and ghost, fucking ghost. Yeah. And it's like, sure, I admit that those people are out there, but I do think most people are like just uncomfortable with something that's very difficult. Hey, I think but if you trust your feelings, you're going to be right every time. You'll be okay.
Trust your heart. Absolutely. So I want to go back to, your entry into comedy. You're selling insurance. When is it this moment when you go, I'm going to switch and I'm going to do this path instead? Did you have to say, I got to wait until I have enough content, or the idea's got to be perfect?
No. I went right in. I'm very lucky. I have a very supportive family. I had some bar mitzvah money saved up where I could attack this. And listen, not everyone's as lucky as I am. I was I started writing and submitting articles, and I was just like, let's do this. This is it. I'm going to be funny for money. That was that was the opening goal. And I didn't know what that meant, because I'm not I didn't wake, watch every stand-up special growing up. I like stand-up, but I wasn't I wasn't a stand-up fanboy.
Okay.
So I liked, my favorite stand-up special was Kevin James, Sweat the Small Stuff, which is on YouTube. Great special. Still works today. But I'm a Kevin James fan. I loved he was physical. It was my type of comedy. But I like SNL. I like sketch, stuff. I remember saying to my dad and mom, I was just like, I don't know what it is, but if it's writing greeting cards, I'll be happier than I was yesterday. Yeah. And the one thing I noticed about myself is I'm a lazy person until I want something. And then I'm not lazy at all. So, and it's been with everything. And I'm sitting at a job that I felt like I was walking through molasses. It just felt like I couldn't get up, and I didn't like the feeling. I wanted to chase. I remember playing high school football. I wasn't good, but I really loved playing high school football. I loved playing Pop Warner. I played my whole life, and I really loved playing. And I remember when I was a sophomore, the freshmen had to play with the freshmen. And then I was a sophomore, and you practice with the varsity and JV practice together. It's one big crew, and then they split to varsity and JV. And there was scout team. And I'm like, scout team? They go, we need a scout defense. So it would be the first offense, the actual varsity offense, the seniors, really. And you're a sophomore. They're gigantic, to you.
Yeah.
But they were if anyone wants to, they were at the end of practice, they'd be the first team has to practice their plays. So we need a defense that will come out here and do real live hitting. We need you to make it tough on the offense. And they knew it wasn't going to be that tough because it's going to be your scrubs. We're tackling dummies. We're people to run over. But anyone could go. Anyone could just jump up and go scout defense. So I would sprint out there every single time. First out there. People used to make fun of me. But I want to play. I want to show people that I'm better than any of these people. Yeah. And I remember jumping out for scout defense, and I remember I was never lazy for that, so I think of comedy that way too. You can just go to an open mic, that's Scout D. I can just go to any open mic. I can go to as many as I want. And I can go to free ones. I can go to $5 ones. I can go to the one that's a music one. I can just run out there. I can sprint out there. And when I saw that with stand-up, that's what really attracted me. I can go out here and I can go. It's the most physical art form to me. You have to go out. You got to do it. You got to write. You got to listen, and you got to perform it. So I was for whatever reason, stand-up spoke to me in that way. There was no person that was well, there wasn't like these casting people in stand-up. You know, it wasn't like, well, I need one of these. It was just be fucking funny. Go on scout. And I remember like when I was in high school, you go on scout defense. And I'm using this metaphor because it really spoke to me where it's like, if I, as a sophomore, I'd be way smaller than the seniors. If I made a play on the first team, the coach would go, who the fuck is this?
Yeah,
they'd start yelling at the first team. You can't play against this guy who ran out here. You can't stop this sophomore that's making your life a living fucking hell during practice on a Wednesday. How are you going to do on game day? So with stand-up, that exists as well. You go to an open mic and you crush. Who the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Where'd this person come from? You go, and then you get booked on a show that no one knows you. Who the fuck is this? It's always scout team. You know, you get to surprise people. You know, that kind of goes away when people start to know you. They come to you because there's a different type of pressure. But that was like, I love that feeling of like, you know, when you crush and you could feel the movement with stand-up. Other stuff, you know, writing is different. Like if you're writing for TV or for a sketch show or for, you know, the monologue on Tonight Show, you know, that's a different type of feeling, and that feels good. I've helped write for other people and friends, and it is cool, but it's not the same as going and crushing a stand-up set.
Absolutely. That's so sick. You really get to decide what you want to do and then just prove everybody wrong. This is what I'm doing and being good at it.
And it's funny because it's like that prove everybody wrong thing is like no one thinks that much of you. You know, like it is fun to imagine all these people cheering against you, but that's not the case. You know, like everyone's doing their own life. But I did the Tonight Show. That was, and to me, I wasn't in my bedroom watching, you know, Jay Leno going, one day I'm going to be on the Tonight Show. No, I started doing stand-up, and I'm like, that's a thing. I got to get that thing. I got to go on the Tonight Show. That's where I'm going to be the most. That's where it is for me. Not Conan, the Tonight Show. I was like, and not Colbert. I know the people who watch that show are going to like me. That's what I want. And then it took a decade, you know, so it's to do that. And it took over 10 years of doing stand-up to get that goal. And it's like when you did it, it was like very validating personally. It didn't feel like I was proving anyone wrong. It felt like I was proving myself right.
Yeah.
You know?
And like you said, it's not overnight. It takes a decade. And we have the clip. I want to play it in a little bit. But 10 years prior to that, you go up and do you remember doing your first open mic or how you felt? Or
Horrible. I didn't get a laugh for a month. The first month I did it. Yeah, I was told go to this one called Penny's open mic, and Penny's was on St. Mark's Street in New York City. St. Mark's is kind of like, it's a van people street. Like it's a...
I feel personally attacked.
No, you know, it's like a very crunchy granola street in New York, and it's someone told me it was so supportive. That was what they said. Go to this one. It's the most supportive open mic, because it's not supportive at open mics. It's other people trying to get the same thing, and they think they're in competition, which they're not. But and Penny used to take a bucket, and you'd all put your name in it, and she'd pick out of the bucket. And when you got your name picked, you could go up to the list and sign up wherever you wanted. I didn't know at the time, but Penny fixed the bucket system. She would call her friends out. So her friends would get, you know, the most supportive place in New York. All these people, these free thinkers, they're, we'll put your name in the bucket. And then the top 10 people that got picked were the same people every week. So the top 10 would go and fill out the first 10 spots because they're like, I want to do the mic and go home. Yeah. So this is the first time I've done stand-up. I was like, I have to do it tonight. So my name gets picked like last. So I sign up for the, you know, number 40. Everyone's doing 7 minutes. That adds up pretty quick. And I waited and I watched, and you know, there's people, I met people that night that I'm now friends with since. You know, Nimesh Patel, I met that night. He had been doing stand-up a year, and he already knew Penny, and he knew that it was fixed. And he went up first. He kills and whatever. And then I'm waiting, and I remember the person that went on before me just went up and screamed. Just screamed. Like, not the way I scream. Like, just like, no, like, just like, like, it was like avant-garde performance art type of weird.
Like Sam Kinison Scream, or
not even talking, just like it was like, because Penny's Open Mic is on St. Mark's. It was like there were people that did other things. There was spoken word, there's comedy, mostly comedy at this open mic. But it was like, someone would go strum a guitar, play a funny song, like it was all things. And this person went up and just screamed, and everyone was like, "Ooh, good, nice, that's great." And then I go up and do my jokes that were whatever I thought was funny at the time. I tried to tell a story, and they just looked horrified. Like they just were like, why is he here? Like, and I had this look that, that I was kind of like, I had it was before like straight white guy was like this punchline, but you just saw it in their eyes that they hated me for thinking I should be, it wasn't as public, and well said at that time. But it was definitely like, who's this dude, bro? Oh, bro was the word they used before.
Bro.
Yeah, that was a little bit more coded. But they were like, why is this bro here? Like, this fratty asshole. And I was like, I don't know, I'm just telling things that I thought my friends would like.
And then, but you still like felt some sort of way, because I feel like there's a certain type of person who would feel that and go, I never want to feel that way again.
Well,
I don't want to do this anymore.
I was given very good advice by a comedian that I legit paid money to give me advice. I said, the one thing that I'm happy that I did was to trust experts. And experts come in all different forms, but I kind of noticed, especially with the internet, people are like, well, I'm the expert. I say it, so I am. And I remember when I worked in life insurance and selling, life insurance and annuities, I felt a little lost. I felt like I didn't have anyone like take me under their wing. I think that's like I don't know. I think we all think that's going to happen when we get out of college. Although there'll be some old soul who take me in and think that I got it.
Yeah.
And no one did that. No one ever done that for me. So I hired someone to do that. I go here, and I went to a comedy club. I watched a stand-up set. I went up to a guy at the bar who now is a friend of mine, and I was so nervous, and he goes, "You want to do stand-up, don't you?" And I go, "I do." He goes, I'm looking for someone who does personal coaching, because I didn't want to do a class, because I felt like a class, I wanted to be able to ask any question I wanted. I didn't want to have to raise my hand. I didn't want to have to listen to the person that was going to tell me how it was, even though they were in the class with me. So he goes, I know a guy, and he hooked me up with this comic who had done a Comedy Central special. Hilarious guy. We're friends now. It's DC Benny's a good friend of mine. He's so funny, like an amazing storyteller, like amazing. And I paid him for like personal coaching, and I go to his house in Brooklyn, and before I'd even done it. And he goes, you got to go on stage. Go, and he's the one who's like, Benny's is good, very, supportive. It was like, yeah, little did he know, they're fixing the bucket. He said to me, he gave me good advice, two really good pieces of advice that I'll always remember. He said, don't drink for the first couple years before you go on stage. It's a trap, because you think
it's funny and it's not killing.
And you're going to chase a dragon. It'll be one drink. That's how I get funny. Then it's 2. Then it's 3. Then it's 4. Do it so you don't need it. You can, now I can have a drink before I go on stage. It's I don't like it. I don't need it. It's not something, you want to not need it.
Yeah.
So.
Like a crutch almost.
It's a crutch, and it's a crutch you don't need. And also, it's just going to get out of control. It never goes well. Mm-hmm. So for the first few years, I never drank really before I went on stage ever. And he also gave me the advice. He said, you're going to kill. Like, everyone does well at some point. Everyone. And he goes, when you kill, do it until you kill. It was basically the advice. That's the way I heard the advice. But he was like, do it until you kill. When you kill, if you don't feel as good as you've ever felt in your life, just stop doing stand-up. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
Because then what's it all for? And you see these people that do stand-up that, like, they don't even enjoy it when they do well. Really?
Why are they doing it? It's the hardest way to
make
money, right?
They feel stuck.
Okay.
They feel like they've been, especially with the internet, social media, we all have that. Where we go, what's nice about you, Nick's Vancast. You had to go out there and tell your friends, I'm starting a podcast. There's public embarrassment that, people text each other. We all know someone's talking.
Now I'm thinking, wasn't even thinking about that now. Shut the cameras off.
You have an ex-girlfriend out there who's like, I can't believe he started a podcast.
I got to live in as you say, the land of naivety.
Yes, the land of naivety.
She's going, I should have stayed with Nick.
Well, listen, I agree. That's a better way to live, but we have to admit,
Yeah.
And so I think with a lot of people who do anything where they've made a vulnerable decision, you feel stuck in it. I think that is a real thing. I think it happens with relationships, we have the Instagram pictures up. I got to delete them now. Like, that's part of your life.
If I fail, I don't want people to think I fail.
It's a public failure.
Yeah.
And now that we all have these public, everyone's a public person now.
Yeah.
Unless you're just off of that. But that's not a bad thing. It's just something we have to admit to. Admitting to it makes it feel better, I think.
Yeah.
So for me, I remember I do that Penny's open mic and I bomb and I'm like, well, I got to get to the kill to see how it feels. And I remember the night that I killed, a friend of mine was with me. We were at this place called Otto's Shrunken Head, also kind of a low East Village grungy place. And I, with whatever I had, I murdered. I had a great set, and it was a 5-minute open mic. And I looked at my buddy who came with me that night because it was a late night open mic, and he goes, "Dude," and I was like, "Dude, that was crazy." And I was like, "Let's go party," and we go out. Like, we got this rush. We got to keep going, and we go out and have fun. He was like, "Oh my God!" I was like, "Oh my God!" And I was like, "Yeah, I gotta get that," So every night is kind of a. With material, it's a pursuit of like every joke being like boom, 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 and getting people to, want to pee their pants,
I think it's so cool, though, that you are aware that if you lost passion, it seems like you'd be okay with, you want to chase it because you're passionate about it. You're not doing it because you think other people will like it, but you hate it.
Yeah, well, that's also the beauty of doing a lot of things. Like, that's the beauty of having a podcast. Like, especially the pandemic, it makes you kind of like everything shut down for stand up. And I kind of leaned on the podcast and putting out content on the internet and stuff like that and seeing how I could help people in that way. And I was very lucky that I had all these things already set up.
Going into the pandemic.
I had this like comedy mutual fund, so to speak. I had all these little projects. And what it taught me is, again, I'm at the point right now where I need to start figuring out where, you have a cup full of energy. Where am I going to pour it into each cup? Like, how much energy can I put into each thing? And that's where I'm at now, because I want to be great at stand-up. I don't want to be good. I want to be great at podcasting. I don't want it to be an okay show. And I walk away from some tapings, I go, Jared, that ain't it. You didn't go into it prepared. You didn't go into it great. You didn't do the things you have to do. And that feels even worse than killing feels good now.
Yeah.
So
that's such a good point. Wow.
Yeah.
So talking about being like you say everybody's a public person, everybody's on social media unless you're not. But you, I feel like, are obviously more, you're putting a lot of, I guess, with You Up podcast, JTrain, you are putting out a lot of like personal life stories and things. Is that weird to you? Do you feel like, it's all got to be a vulnerable thing. For me, doing this, it's weird because I'm not even sharing that much about me, but I'm usually the guy behind the camera. So did you have to learn how to feel comfortable sharing?
You make mistakes because you can share. Everything I share is about me. I'm not looking to hurt anyone in my life. That's never my goal. I'm not looking to talk about the person I date. That's not what it's about. Those podcasts do exist, but for me, how do I take something, what I think is a strength for me, but it's hard to do, is make something personal, but also not, where it's about me and not about, listen, I went through a breakup. You have to say, I knew I had to talk about that because I talked about being in a relationship on the podcast. And then you have to talk, how do you talk about not being in one anymore, and how do you do that respectfully? And that's all really hard. It's emotional bumper cars, like, because you're figuring it out on the fly. So it's that's hard. And it's even like it's funny because you were like, we're already taping. So like I was thinking, I'm like, okay, was I protecting the innocent? Like in the beginning, you go, and because I'm not saying I'm a different person off, we were hanging out before, but I'm thinking through my words more here.
Yes.
To make sure that I'm being funny, appropriate, respectful, those things.
I think it's cool that you get this channel to be vulnerable, though, because while you get to talk through things, personal life, like, for example, when I first started listening to You Up, which I want to ask you about, this dating advice podcast, I had just been dumped. And I was driving this empty van, non-converted, to Colorado to get it converted. Wow. Like 2 days, I invited my girlfriend to go with me to Colorado. Let's get this van converted. We'll go to Colorado, make a road trip out of it.
Sure.
I get dumped. And I think I had listened to like one episode of You Up. And then I was like, I really like that show. I want to listen to that again. And I'm going to be on this road trip. I was like, do I want to listen to a dating podcast 2 days after getting dumped? Absolutely not. And I put it on just like feeling really sad. And then that's all I listened to on the way there because it felt so good to hear that you're not the only one going through this stuff. And I think that comes from the people that email you guys asking for advice, but also from you and Jordana talking about your own personal experiences. And now you do the paid You Up with benefits that I listened to. And I almost feel weird because I'm like, oh man, I know all this stuff about Jared. I feel weird. But no, it's cool that you get to help people as well as be really hilarious.
Well, it is, I never intended it to be that. I was like, let's have fun talking about dating. And then people say that to me a lot and I appreciate it. And, with a podcast, you don't know when it hits people. Some people are like, yeah, I'm married and I just like hearing the stories. And I've been married for 20 years and it's cool to kind of hear what people are going through. Yeah. And then some people are like, it was given to me during a breakup. And a friend of mine sent me one episode. And then, everything you're saying. And I totally appreciate all versions of it. I think the thing that Jordana and I do really well is we take all customers. So nobody's dumb. Nobody's going through something that like is stupid. And every story we unpack it. It's hard because if you go to your friends, they go, oh, that's stupid, dump them. Or they go, oh, that's stupid, get over it. It's like, well, no, let's talk about, let's really unpack what makes a bad texter or why they said these specific words. So I think people enjoy that because if we just said dump them, there's no podcast.
Yeah, that's true. No show. And there probably are shows like that.
Yeah. And, I think it is interesting to talk about. I think it is interesting. Why does he watch all my stories? I don't know. I'm watching everyone's stories too. Yeah. So.
It's relatable. It's so relatable. And obviously, I'm cracking up. It's not just good advice.
Oh, totally.
You get to show your humorous side. It's so funny, too.
But the thing I've learned from doing, the podcast for a long time is you kind of have to take the question seriously and then you can be funny with it after. If you don't take the question seriously, then no one wants to hear your fucking jokes. You have to okay, let's read the email. Let's take the... You have to look at the situation seriously while also being lighthearted in yourself.
Can I ask you, how did you get connected with Jordana and Betches and You Up?
So I've been doing JTrain podcasts for close to 9 or 10 years, and I was introduced to Jordana and Sammy and Aileen, the Betches, because a guy who I was producing shows with, his sister went to college with them. So it was like this kind of like Jewish geography type connection. And we ended up putting shows together for Betches. And then now I have their number and we're talking and I'm sending them tweets and being like, I'm like, hey, would love for you to post these. Again, what am I doing when I'm not doing stand-up? I'm trying to find new people, find people who like my stuff, put stuff out there that people think is funny that they'll share with their friends. And we kind of, we always connected. I felt like Jordana, Sammy, and Aileen, I've known versions of them my whole life. Like I know them. Like we just kind of felt like it was a good, and they've always been so good to me. Always respond to my texts. And then I had them on my podcast, and I was like, how great would that be? Like, let's get their point of view on dating. Their episodes always did well, and then they were like, we want to start a podcast. I was like, I sent one email like hooking them up with production people. And then they started their own podcast. And then one day they were like, hey, we want to do a dating one with you and like the male-female perspective. We're going to start our own podcast kind of thing here. And I was like, great, let's do it. And, JTrain podcast, I always was like, how do I find female listeners? I think this is because men, their questions were awful. It was always like, I met this chick, how do we get laid? It's very simple.
Yeah.
The women that wrote in were always so good, like always depthy, always like had really great questions. And, podcasts were kind of a male thing when I first started. There was sports, news. It was just, and then I remember when, what's the podcast? Serial.
Oh, yeah.
Serial came out, murder mystery. Women started listening. That's when women started really getting into podcasts. Then there were more murder mysteries. And then I started going on like female-driven shows. They're talking about dating. Then I would get brought on as a guest. Hey, what do you think about dating? Then I'm talking about my thing, and they would end up coming over. And then when we do You Up, you're at the center of the, Betches is a major media, company, but that's it's they have a huge female, listener, viewership, readership, whatever it was. Yeah. So now I'm in the center of the bullseye and we're talking about dating, and it was just kind of a perfect match. And, Jordana's like a perfect co-host because we banter off each other. She doesn't let me get away with it, but she also doesn't make me this evil, gross soul. When sometimes some of these subjects can get icky and gross.
Absolutely. But in all these situations, there's nuance, and you get to kind of, like push back and say, well, what about this angle to this person's dating question when they're just looking for you to maybe side with them. And you get to be that devil's advocate for the person who's not writing in sometimes.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a big thing, too. Like, sometimes, and that's it. This goes back to what are the rules? Be a good person. It's hard to be so honest that it hurts. I can be more honest on the podcast than maybe someone you're dating can be.
Yeah.
Because the person you're dating has to look you in the eye and they like you and they care about you. And how do you tell someone I think you're attractive, but I don't want to marry you? Like, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
And because we don't live in, a time, we're past the time where, staying single, are you? We're past that. You're allowed to date. You're allowed to meet new people. You're allowed to go on the apps and you're allowed to break up and you're allowed to get divorced and things are allowed to not work out in a way they weren't. Maybe they were frowned upon 50, 100 years. You know what I mean? And so if you're allowed to go out and date, and there's going to be these uncomfortable conversations that are tough to have. So I sometimes get put in the position of speaking for whoever that person is that they're emailing about.
Well, I really enjoy it. And it was an episode, I don't remember when I heard it for the first time, and you guys mentioned we have, a huge female following. And I was like, oh, I'm like the guy infiltrating the intel.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've benefited a lot from hearing these stories, and I'm not in a relationship now, but it's like I feel like I will be a better dater because of the advice that I hear via you guys.
Absolutely. I know we have men that listen. Don't get me wrong. I think it's the perfect podcast to share with your spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever your partner is, because we get them all moving on conversations. What do you think about that? Now you're not looking at your girlfriend or boyfriend and going, well, what do you think about, that red flag deal breaker or that sex story? Have you ever had that happen to you? It is a perfect podcast for starting conversations with your partner that you might not have ever had. And I love. Like that, I'm like, yes. Because when you go on a road trip with your girlfriend, stop the podcast. Let's have we'll be Jared and Jordana, and I think that's fun and good for relationships.
So utilizing all these experiences that you've had, the podcasts you do, and you're doing full-time travel, stand-up comedy. Yeah. It's so sick that you get to do that and make people laugh and be happy. What's your biggest source of gathering content that you're going to use on stage? Is it from podcasts? Is it from people's emails? Is it just life? It's life. It's a lot of it lately has been family and trying to figure out what I want in a relationship. And that's really what I've been talking about. Pandemic made jokes easier for me.
because everyone was going through the pandemic at the same time. So I can go up and talk about, I did a whole stand-up special about 2020.
It's really hilarious.
Thank you.
Socially distanced?
The socially, of course. So that was all material that I was like, this is happening at everybody. And at the time, it was easier to tell because we're all on the same page. It was like we were all going through something at the same time. So that's not generally the case with a stand-up crowd. You go to a show, hey, I'm single. Okay, now half the remain single.
Yeah.
You can go, hey, so coronavirus, everyone's going through it. What am I going through that someone else is going through, or someone may have gone through, or someone can understand? Like I talk a lot about food and body and weight issues on stage, and that's something that it's cool to connect with people because that's something I think about all the time. So I tell a story about eating late at night, and a guy last night came out to me and we looked exactly alike. And he goes, dude, the way you talked about eating at night, I can't tell you how much that connected with me. And it's that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's so cool. And you're doing it all over the place. You're getting to meet so many people.
Yeah.
It's an amazing thing.
The travel's tough. I mean, I would where do you pour that cup?
Gotta get a van. Get a driver.
Dude, this is I can't believe how comfortable this looks.
Yeah, it's a little cozy, right? But
it's great. I love it. I'm a huge fan.
Thank you. Okay, so I know we're limited on time. You got a show tonight. I'm super excited for that. Actually, I've only been to one other comedy show before.
Who'd you see?
Well, it's I would say half of a comedy show.
Okay.
Kind of. It was full. So I saw Creed Bratton, actually, from The Office.
Come on.
He was
a musician.
Yeah, he does comedy music. It's really cool.
Oh, my God. Well, he was in a famous band, right?
The Grassroots.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
didn't know he did shows.
Yeah, he came through to my small town of 5,000 people and did a show.
Was it fun?
Yeah, he's hilarious. You can probably find clips online. He's so funny, and he's near 80 years old, and he's so sharp and is funny.
Oh, I love that.
He'll tell a story. He'll play a song. But there was
sorry to interrupt. No. There's a YouTube flash cut of all his best lines. If you want to turn your day around, go watch that YouTube. It's so good.
Yeah, he's an incredible actor and musician too.
Yeah.
But there was a guy who the New York comedian actually who I had on my show did 15, 20 minutes before Creed.
Oh wow.
And I was watching. I was like, I've never seen a comedy show. I like you. Yeah. I don't watch them all the time on Netflix. I've seen quite a few, but I'm not watching them all the time. Mm-hmm. And I was like, why have I never seen a stand-up show before? And it was really awesome. And I went up to him after. I was like, hey, I have this van outside. You want to come on? And he was like, what? I was like, you just got to see it. Come on.
Yeah.
But so this will be the second show tonight.
Love it.
Super excited.
You'll have to let me know what you think.
I can already tell you.
Yeah.
The Tonight Show.
Sure.
You were on The Tonight Show.
Yes.
That's insane.
It was pretty crazy.
You mentioned a story on You Up, I feel like a couple weeks ago, talking about how you hadn't gone out that night, Tonight Show would have happened later, but talking about how things fit into the right places and putting yourself in position to make good things happen for yourself. Can you tell us how that kind of came about?
So I'll give you the medium-sized story of it. 2 years ago, before the pandemic, here's what happens. Tonight Show, if you're going to do a stand-up set on a late-night show, there's bookers for that. And the bookers are around, and sometimes if someone's going to do this, I hosted a lot at the Comedy Cellar in New York. I would host shows. And if a booker for the Tonight Show came around with someone who's doing it that week, they'd tote them around to all the shows, and they would say, Jared, we got to do a 5-minute spot with so-and-so. Can you bring them on, whatever? And I'm like, yeah, I'll fit them into the show. So I was aware, you're aware, the booker's going to be here tonight. So maybe they see you, and that's part of it too. Again, scout team, think about here's your shot. Put it. So the booker for the Tonight Show was at the Comedy Cellar, and I was hosting, and I was on stage, and I came off stage. They go, hey, so-and-so's doing the Tonight Show. Can you bring them on now? So I go to bring them on, and then I come off stage, and I'm told literally, so they were like, yeah, he liked those 2 jokes. My actual agent was there because they represented the person that I was bringing on stage that was going to do the Tonight Show. So my agent goes, he liked these 2 jokes. He said to build a set off of that. So I go, okay, good. So I have the 2 jokes that he liked, and I'm like, okay, now I'm in the game, Again, scout team, who's this guy, So then I go and I spent like 3 months putting together a set, and then I sent it in, and they were like, okay, this is approved. I'm like, holy shit, I'm going to do the Tonight Show. They never gave me a date. So I'm like, okay, I'll just wait, And then pandemic happens, no Tonight Show. Then they come back. There's no studio audience. They're not doing stand-up on the show anymore. And then we come back from the pandemic to the studio audience, and I send an email, hey, I'm ready to go. And they're like, everything's different now. You're out. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? And I did shows in New York, and a fan of JTrain podcast was at the show and brought their friends, and one of their friends happened to work at the show. And they were like, we got to get you on. And then that day, they're like, send in another set. And I'm like, okay. So I sent another set, and they were like, you're back. And I'm like, I'm back where I was with no date, and all right. But I always send in, when they're like, hey, send us 5 minutes because you got to send in for legal. They have to like approve your language.
Yeah.
So I sent in 10 minutes instead of 5 because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but here's 10 minutes of material, and then I'll pick and choose. Gives me some freedom.
Yeah.
And again, that goes back to what we talked about. Like, if I was 2 years in putting out minute clips, no. I'm collecting material like acorns for the hibernation. So I sent in the 10 minutes, and they're like, okay, this is approved. No date. So I'm just kind of waiting. And then we emailed like a month later, hey, we just want to check in. They're like, these 6 comics are ahead of you. Okay. Go back to my thing. So I didn't really work. I knew the first 3 minutes of the set, but I wasn't sure the last 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. But I was like, again, I'm lazy. As I said, I'm a procrastinator. I was like, oh, f*** around. When they give me a date, I'll figure out the final 2 minutes. That'll get me on my get on your horse, And I get a call on a Tuesday night. I had just yelled at the Bachelorette. So it was Tuesday night, 12:30 morning night, from a number from L.A. And then I get a text from the manager of the Comedy Cellar. Pick up your fucking phone. So then I call it back. It's the booker. Hey, the guy who's supposed to do it tomorrow got COVID. Can you do it tomorrow? I'm like, holy yeah, I can do it. Let's do it. I get out of bed. The manager from the Cellar, she's a good friend. She's like, get here now and you'll do the set. You got one chance to do the set that's how you practice.
This is the thing about a van podcast. You
right?
never know what's going to happen outside.
Well, I don't know. I have a lot of sirens near my apartment.
Oh.
And sometimes people can't hear it.
Oh, okay. No, they'll definitely hear this.
They'll hear this. Well, this is a van. This is part of the Vancast. This is the part of the charm.
Yeah. My first episode, there's a guy like leaf blowing outside. I was like, this is never going to work ever. But that's part of the experience.
Yeah, this is what it's about. This is what people come to Nick's Vancast.
Yeah.
So I get out of bed. I run to the Comedy Cellar. I live like 5 minutes away. And I go on stage at like 1:30 in the morning.
You're ready for bed.
I was in bed. And I went on. Dave Attell is one of the greatest comedians alive. He's a legend and currently like one of the best comics alive. So he's on stage and he's a late night comic. Like he's if you're at the Comedy Cellar late at night and Dave Attell pops on, you are getting the treat of your life. And so he's murdering, crushing. And then I'm like, okay, I got to go do my clean 5 minutes for TV. So I go up and I bomb and I go home and I'm mad and I start writing out new jokes, not new ones, but like, what other material do I have so I don't bomb this last 2 minutes? I only have the first 3. I need 5. And I wake up in the morning, I'm emailing the booker, being like, hey, can you push these through legal? Can you see if these work? And he's like, you got another day because we have a taped musical performance that we're going to put on at the end of this show. And then you're going to do it on Veterans Day, which is also Taylor Swift Day here at the show. So you're going to be on Taylor Swift's episode, which is our like biggest show of the year with all veterans in the audience. And I'm like, wow. So then that night I did 8 spots at the Comedy Cellar. I did every show. They were like, you're on every show. And this is the beauty of like, if you do the right work, you always have access to the things that'll make things easier when they come up. So I was getting up at the Cellar every single night. Any favor someone needed, I'm there. Can you fill in? Sure. Can you host? Of course. That's been a decade of that. And hey, fit on this comic. They're working on their late night set. Sure, I'll get them on. I'll give them a good intro. I did right by everybody. And so it's really beautiful when it comes back. You know, when you go, hey, it's tomorrow, and they go, you're on all show. You get the treatment, you know, that you gave to other people, which is special. And so I go on all the shows and I work on it and we figure out the ending. And the next day I went on the show and it was a true dream. The funniest part to me was my parents. I called them. I'm like, hey, you got a day. Get down here. Come up to New York, you know, on Thursday. My parents are like, okay, we're going to. They're like, we're making our flights now. And I go, make your flights. You'll come in the morning. You'll leave at night. Good. And then I text them. I go, hey, you got to get a PCR test to go into 30 Rock. They don't let you in unless you had a PCR test. So here's all the info. They go, vaccinated not enough? And I go, no, it's not enough. You got to get the PCR test. My dad writes back, we'll watch on TV. And I'm like, so that was funny. But yeah, and it was just, it was perfect. And I never met Taylor Swift. She comes in with like a crew of, she's like a parade float. Like she's got, and it's also Taylor Swift Day. It's not Jared Freid Day, you know? So.
Yeah, it's Jared Freid Day to me.
To you. And, so there's a little element of that where like, that was kind of fun. And then after the show, you know, Jimmy Fallon's like the nicest you could be. And he loved one of the jokes. And that was just it. And then you kind of just back at it, you know, and it's just to me, it wasn't life's going to change. It was just, this is just another thing, you know, this is a beautiful thing, a validating thing, a great thing, but it's not, if you're doing things for, like, again, stand-up's the prize. I just want to go do stand-up. I just want to keep working on it. So it wasn't it is frustrating because people were like, so what came of it? That was the it, you know, like, and that's hard. It's a hard thing to answer because you're like, nothing, but nothing but validation and feeling like this is a real career. You know, is that enough for you? You know?
Yeah. That's gotta be so validating. That's amazing. Because doing this show, I'm like, if I had done one episode, I go, hey, Jared Freid, you want to do Vancast? You're like, what's Vancast? It's like you do this thing you're passionate about, and then you get the results from working hard and putting in that effort when nobody's, putting on the Tonight Show.
No, but if you just saying to me, hey, it helped me through my breakup, I got that.
Yeah.
You know, like that's a nice thing. I'm happy it could help, you know, so... Or you made me laugh. Oh, I think you're funny. Those are all great things, you know? And so that's why it is so jarring when someone's so, you know, you get, anyone that's in the internet game always talks about these like trolls. We should talk as much about the positive stuff as much, because 99% is positive. Yeah. There's that 1%, and that's why you talk about it, because it's like you're just like, I can't believe, what? You didn't get this? Everyone else got it but you? You know, so.
Well, I feel like a very proud parent when I saw you go on the Tonight Show.
That means a lot.
We have a clip.
All right, let's do it.
Let's play this.
All right, this is so professional. I am so...
I don't even know what an adult is anymore. I'm 36. I'm doing stuff I thought I would have grown up out of years ago. Every time I fly somewhere, I text my parents, landed. You ever read that text back to yourself? You don't sound like a man. Landed. You sound like a spoiled prince. Mommy, put my jammies in the dryer. I prefer them warm with my milk and cookies. Tell Papa I'll be taking story time in my quarters. The Prince of Needham has landed.
Like I said, proud parent right there.
Thank you.
And I saw that's so cool.
Yeah. It's very cool. It's it's cool because then people go Needham. Oh, it's all fun. It's all like it's just very cool, and nothing like your first time. So like it's a great memory.
Do you have any advice for people who come to you and say, "How do I get better at stand-up?" What do you tell people?
It's so hard because you can see me disappointing them the minute I give them the advice. Like I can see their soul die in their eyes, because stand-up is the advice is diet and exercise. Nobody wants to hear it. Like, nobody wants to hear, oh, how do I lose weight? Diet and exercise. And then you go, yeah, but what's like the thing? You know, like what's going to make it go faster? And it's like stand up. It's very simple. Get on stage, record your set, get off stage, listen to the recording, rewrite the parts that were funny, like write down the parts that were funny, take out the parts that got no laughs, or rewrite them, and then go on stage again. That's it. That's purely, it is, again, the most physical art form. You got to get out of bed. You got to go to the place. You got to go to the open mic. You got to sign up your name. You got to wait behind the person screaming. It's truly like you feel like Icarus, you know, pushing the boulder up the mountain, because every night I'm working on new bits. There are bits that I know work. There's bits that I don't know will work, and I work through them, and you got to make them better, and you're kind of trying to shine this diamond.
It's a muscle, that's for sure. And you're refining content all the time, I'm sure, and
All the
jokes. But at the same time, your crowd work is amazing.
Thank you.
That's not something you can prepare specific.
No, I got
words
two.
for.
I got two videos that Alec is helping me with.
Yeah,
and I love when crowd work works. Ooh, it feels good. But again, this goes back to when I started. I considered, like, I made an investment in this. I considered doing comedy like a grad school. Like, I was like, I'm putting my money into grad school. So I went and I hired the guy that gave me advice, DC Benny. I took sketch class. I took improv, 3 levels of improv. Like, I didn't, none of this is by mistake. Yeah. What are the rules? Rules of improv. Improv is a very easy thing to teach because there's one rule. Yes, and. It's funnier to say yes, and than it is no, but. So if you know that rule, and then you got to work on it. Again, the muscle. So I love when the crowd gets involved, but it's got to be fun. Sometimes it can't. It's a tight wire act because, last night there was a woman at the show and she was just wooing. There's woo, 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 and I kept going back to her, like, your woos don't even make sense with what I'm saying. Like, and the whole crowd was on board, so it was fun because the crowd was on my side. They're laughing at it. But you can't get mad. You can't get angry. You have to have a lot of patience. You have to, and sometimes you just don't have the patience.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That can be difficult.
I would think that if you're at a comedy show, you're there to have fun and be funny. Chardonnay Pam.
That
was hilarious.
But that went for so long. Then you have to be cognizant of the people in the crowd that are like, I don't want to hear from Chardonnay Pam anymore. I came to see a stand-up show. So you have to again, you truly are driving this bus, and you'll see tonight, and you gotta make sure you're keeping it in control, because there was a woman last night, the wooer, and then there was another woman in the front that just kept screaming out, and the wooer had its moment, was fun. The scream out person wasn't fun for the people around the scream out person, and I could tell, you can see it on their face. I stopped the show. I go, listen, this woman is going to have an aneurysm if you don't stop screaming out. It's not for me.
Yeah.
You have to find a funny, polite way to tell someone to shut the f up.
Right.
How do you say it nicely,
Yeah, it's the teacher reading to the class and saying to the kid goofing off, like, all right, we're just going to take a moment and wait for Johnny to settle down.
Exactly. You have to, and as weird as it is, you're doing shows for adults that it comes back to children,
Yeah. I can't wait for tonight.
Oh, I can't wait to have you.
It's going to be awesome. I say this in all honesty, you're my favorite comedian.
Oh,
it's
that's
been
way
so
too
fun.
kind. You haven't seen me yet. You got to see the show.
I used to hear stuff online all the time. I listen to your podcast. It's so weird. Like I said, it's like I feel like I knew you before. Listening to you 2-3 times a week for 2 years. It's awesome what you're doing. I'm honestly really happy you did this.
I love what you're doing. This is so cool. I'm truly impressed. I mean,
thank you.
And not just the van, the podcast. Thanks. This is a true operation. Like, people think because I do podcasts, I know how to do it. I don't know any of this. All this is technical
work in
stuff.
progress.
Yeah, no, I always had people helping me where I was like,
yeah.
So to me, you're doing a great job. I love it.
Thank you.
Come
on anytime.
I will.
Can you give us dates, all the things, the shows?
Just go to my Instagram at Jared Freid. There's a link in my bio that takes you to my podcast. It takes you to my stand-up dates. I'm all, again, San Francisco. I'll be here in March. I love doing shows. I love doing shows in Sacramento. You'll see tonight. audiences here are very cool. Like, and because they're with it, and they're also not. They don't want to be San Francisco here. Yeah. Which is like a kind of a nice thing. They're like, they don't want to be, you know, the too into every, you know, angry at everything all the time. They're just like, they're like a chill younger sibling that has like an eccentric older sister. And, you know, like, they're like, oh, you know, I get it. Yeah. She likes to, you know, wear, you know, grass instead of, you know, wool because it's mean to the sheep, you know, like, so they're just, I just like shows here but San Francisco's a different beast. You know, you have to, how do I tame that beast? I remember I opened for my friend in San Francisco and, I was the opener and you could just see how disappointed, again, back to Penny's open mic, they're like, oh, straight white dude with a loud opinion, this. And then I remember I mentioned I was Jewish and you could feel them like feel better about it. Yeah, they're like, and I was like, and I remember saying to them, did my people struggle enough to make the funnies? Is that okay with you? I can make jokes now? You know, so that's, again, you're figuring out these audiences of different, that are very similar, but just have their own quirks.
It's such a dynamic thing. You go across the country and you got to figure out that different beast.
Yeah, there's like, you know, there's government towns. That's Sacramento. Government towns are good towns for comedy. Okay. Usually. Government towns, D.C., Madison, Wisconsin, Sacramento. These are fun towns to do comedy. All capital towns. Government towns. They have to deal with each other. They have to negotiate. They know that someone next to them might disagree with them politically completely. Okay? Then there's aspiration towns, New York, Miami, L.A. I'm here to dream. I'm here to make it. Okay? And then there's towns. You know, the mom and dad have been here, and so was grandma and grandpa. And those are just insular, and they're very, don't make fun of us when we know we suck. So, you know.
What's your favorite then? Do you like one of those categories the most?
No, I have no preference. I just
take them all.
I take them all, but I don't know. I like it depends on the time of year too. I'd like to be in the town. Yeah. When in the winter when it's miserable, because those people are usually like, you know,
ready to laugh, or
yeah, they're laugh, and they're used to putting on a coat and getting in the car and driving out in the snow, and I like those types of people. Aspirational towns is good for like a Saturday night show. Like, it's always going to be a good show on a Saturday night. Government towns are great because they're all knowledgeable about current events, and they'll go with you. They'll go, you know, like if you go, aspirational town is usually like a little bit more liberal, and like if you say something they disagree with, no, we're done. You know, there's that element of it.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm super excited tonight. Oh, really quick, speaking of hats, I don't know if you know this or if you remember, you gave me dating advice one time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. On the U Up, you and Jordana did my profile makeover.
Oh,
and the one thing you told me, super helpful. Yeah. I mean, working on it, you said, post more pictures without hats.
Yes.
Don't hatfish.
Hatfish.
And I was like, oh, that hurts to hear, but it's true.
But I'm a hat guy too.
Yeah, well, you have beautiful hair.
Well, thank you.
I do not.
No, but I was told, I mean, I remember doing open mics and people were like, you wear a hat on stage all the time. I was like, yeah, like wearing a hat. I don't know. They were like, well, people think that if there's someone here to cast you, they think you're...
They want the headshot.
They want to know what's going on here. Why the hat? You know, so, I mean, women are casting you on dating apps.
Yeah, that's a good point. I just got to embrace this Statham, as Jordana told me, because I've been freaking balding since high school, so...
Well, you look great. You're a good-looking dude. I don't think you're going to have a problem. You're going to...
a lot more action outside.
Dude, this happens. So the show's in like kind of a strip mall area. It's bike night every Thursday.
Here?
In Sacramento. Okay. So literally, the last time I was here, or 2 times ago I was here, you go on stage and all you hear is... I have a video of it, and I'm going to post it, but it was so annoying. And you were just on stage just here.
That's a bit now in itself.
It's crazy.
Look at you.
So, yeah.
Jared Freid.
Thank you.
So stoked. Thanks for doing this.
It's a pleasure.
I gotta steal your line from you.
Yeah.
JaredFreid.com, JaredFreid.com. Everybody, check out Jared Freid.
Thank you.
And thanks for doing Nick's
Thank you for the
Vancast.
hat. This is amazing.
Anytime. Come back again and talk to you soon.
Later,
Feel
bro.
like I'm at the tippy top of my game, looking down at the rap.